I think what happened was men got greedy and got a little things out of hand, and it was time to put an end to having lots of wives.
It's been pretty recently, I'm not sure exactly when, and I think the reason for it is because even though according to the Torah it's allowed to marry more than one wife, in the world it became accepted that people marry one person, and in order that the Jews shouldn't look immoral, they made that restriction.
In the Bible, men used to marry more than one wife, but right now I don't see any reason why we need to have more than one wife. I think you can get what you need to out of life with just one wife.
I don't think anyone can handle more than half a wife, you know. And with one whole one, you got your hands full. Another 18 is not going to do you any better in fulfilling your goal in this world and in your life.
I think it might be a good idea for Jews to marry more than one wife, but that's from a very selfish point of view. As for marrying only one wife, that's also good because you'll have a more intimate relationship with her because she's the only one.
Polygamy was never a mainstream idea in Jewish life. Even at a time when polygamy was permitted and practiced, very few Jewish homes were based on polygamy. And most of the time when polygamy was practiced, it was simply because of the fact that there were women who could not be left alone in a very dangerous and anti-feminine society, and therefore needed to be part of a home, a part of a family. And therefore, many times a man would take a second wife as much out of compassion for the woman as out of his own personal needs. The rabbis always said that 2 women in the kitchen is problems, and 2 women in other rooms in the house is certainly problems. So therefore, it never was encouraged. However, in the 11th century, Rabbi Gershom, the Light of the Exile, who was really one of the founders of Ashkenazic Jewry, at a convocation of rabbis, passed a law, so to speak, a decree that banned polygamy entirely. Part of the problem was that living in the Christian society, which even looked at askance at marriage at one wife and held that celibacy was the height of purity, 2 wives looked like immorality. And partly because of the pressures, the economic and other pressures of the exile, the ban was widely accepted. And from that time on, Ashkenazic Jewry banned polygamy, almost under all circumstances. Now, Sephardic Jewry, the Jews who lived in the Muslim countries, did not adopt Rabbeinu Gershom's policy, and polygamy existed there really until almost our time, till the middle of the 20th century. However, there also it was not the norm, not the mainstream, and almost in all cases there were extenuating circumstances that contributed to the fact that there was a polygamous house. And by 1950, when the Sephardic Jews began their emigration to the land of Israel, in the land of Israel polygamy was banned for everyone, so those who came with more than one wife naturally could keep them, but there were no more polygamous marriages, so that today within the Jewish people it's practically unknown that there should be any polygamous houses whatsoever, and the sanctity of the Jewish home is maintained through monogamous, faithful, loyal relationships.
The Hasidim have been around for, I would think, 3,000 years, 2,000 years.
The first chassid was the Baal Shem Tov. I'd have to say he went back a good, at least 500 years. I'm thinking, I'm hearing from the audience that it might be closer to about 200 years, maybe 100 and a lot of change, closer to 200.
800 years, like I would say 600 years.
200 something years ago.
I think they've been around for about 300 years.
Ever since I've been in Israel, I've seen some, so that's as far as I can tell you, maybe a year and a half or two.
I'm not sure what to think so much about Hasidim. I mean, like, a lot of them don't speak English, and Mea Shearim, they only speak Yiddish, and I don't. But the ones I've met are, like, pretty nice guys, I guess, like that. If they want to grow them, like, paya thingies or whatever, then, like, whatever floats their boat. I've seen weirder hairstyles, like, on Ben Yehuda Street or in America, so whatever, you know?
The Hasidic movement began at the beginning of the 18th century in Eastern Europe. Its founder, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, was a charismatic teacher and leader who, even though he lived a relatively short life, he died in his 50s, had enormous influence on his disciples, who spread the message of Hasidus throughout Eastern Europe. Eventually, almost all Polish Jewry, Galician Jewry, Ukrainian Jewry became Hasidic, penetrated into Central Europe, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania. And the Hasidic movement is a revolution, so to speak, because in the 18th century when it began, the old forms of study and of Jewish social life began to break down. You had the beginning of all sorts of changes in the general world, new ideas, the Enlightenment, ideas of urbanization and industrialization came into the world. The Hasidic movement came to, not to counter these ideas as much as to provide an alternative to the ideas, to create a spiritual world where Jews could live. And especially because of the great persecution of the Jews under the Tsars, as the situation became worse and worse, poverty, infant mortality, pogroms, the Hasidic movement provided an escape into a world of the spirit, into a world that was much more comforting, had greater vision, less pressures. It's an interesting thing that the Hasidim eventually said that this world that we live in is not the real world, but that there is a real world where all of these injustices, all of this violence, all of this hatred really doesn't exist. And Chassidus is a very complicated thing. It's been oversimplified to say it's a movement of joy. Yes, it is. It's a movement of song. Yes, it is. It's a movement of prayer. Yes, it is. It's a movement for the masses. Yes, it is. But it's much more than that. And it's very, very complex and complicated, and it's divided into many, many different groups, subsections, subgroupings. I think there are hundreds of different Hasidic sects. Because of that, it doesn't lend itself to easy interpretation or to a view of it as being monolithic. But it is the major revolution in Jewish life, certainly over the last 3 centuries. And what makes it unique is that it is a revolution within the boundaries of Jewish tradition and halakha, whereas other attempts to change and reform the Jewish people always went outside the box of halakha and tradition and attempted to create a new Judaism. Whereas Chassidus didn't create a new Judaism, but it did try to create new Jews, which is a little harder than creating a new Judaism.
The Messiah is a very old man with a very long white beard who will come all dressed in white and barefoot but will be numb to pain, and he will have a big brown walking stick, bright blue eyes, very long uncombed hair, and will tell everybody the end of days is now.
If you ask like any amount of people, they'll tell you a whole bunch of different stuff about the whole thing with the Messiah, but like my own personal thing is just like when like the Messiah comes, like that's when like people are finally gonna like be smart about like what matters and what doesn't.
The Messiah is a man, a regular human being, born in blood, that when he comes, it will be the time when the whole world will unite, when there will be peace on earth.